This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For December 11th, 2020, it's the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. Well, welcome back, everybody. My name's Chris Decter. I'm joined today by Justin, Mark, Larry, Jamie, and we have two very special guests who we'll introduce in a moment. They're here right now listening to everything we say, but we're not letting them talk yet because it's outside their contract. I'm kidding. We have a very special discussion today with two people from Oregon State and Western Kentucky University, and we want to talk specifically about the interaction between AV support staff and production staff and kind of how that all works and how you deal with athletic departments on campus and sports productions. And it's just can be a real mess. Some of us at Big Ten schools don't have to deal with that at all because there's an entire multi-million-dollar TV production studio that does that. Other schools don't have sports, so, pick one. But before we get to that, let's cover the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
So it came out, it was about a week and a half ago. Actually, I think it was right before Thanksgiving, so maybe 2 weeks ago. The news came out that Shure has purchased STEM Audio, and of course, by extension, Phoenix Audio. Actually, let me restate that. They have purchased the group who owns both of those, which I believe is Midas Technologies. So it comes with that is STEM Audio and Phoenix Audio. Now, this caught my eye for two reasons. One, because we all know Shure and what they're up to. Two is not so much the STEM Audio part, but the Phoenix Audio part. And I know Jamie's talked about it a number of times. He uses Phoenix Audio's little speakerphone sort of thing there, and that works out well. But I'm kind of curious on this one, what you guys think about it. I think this is a bigger deal than others. They may just ignore it because I don't know anything about STEM Audio or whatever. But I think what Shure is doing is they're making a play to kind of build their own ecosystem here. STEM Audio is an interesting little sub-brand where they have developed strictly for kind of Zoom room, team room style conference room spaces. Very simple spaces. Here's a microphone, a speaker bar, a little control unit, touch panel, but super basic. Nothing very fancy about it. But as a self-contained kind of unit that small IT departments can deploy. And thus, I think we'll start seeing these show up places, maybe even, at a university we may not even be aware it's happening. Now, Shure kind of buying up this group says to me that they're going to kind of now do their own ecosystem for small conference spaces that don't need a whole lot of larger odds and ends. You can tie in a nice Shure microphone and one of their little P300 processors or something, do a little more audio. But if you're willing to live within that kind of the constraints of that, it could very well be an interesting thing to say, I'm just going to deploy a whole bunch of these team rooms, Zoom rooms, whatever they might be, using Shure's audio processing and what STEM Audio has for their kind of small ecosystem. So I'm curious what you guys think about this.
I thought at first, thought it was
I'm intrigued.
I thought it was a quick way to get out from underneath the Clear One stuff. That, so basically it is hey, look, somebody else with patents. So they're buying the intellectual property for the patents to get out from underneath the other problem, that they can conveniently now make a settlement and get out of that news cycle. That was my first response. My second thought was, it was similar to what you're saying, is that I think Shure's they've been well known in the professional world for a long time, right? We all like to use their products in one form or another. And I think this fills a gap for them. I think that is that entry level. It is that consumerism level. It is that let's take hold of the at-home people. I don't think it's a coincidence that it comes right after the big push for that, because some of you use that the SM7, right, microphone, that MV7, it's the USB version. So all of this stuff is coming upon, and I think that it's their kick into the Amazon world. Because they can easily put this into Amazon, keep the professional stuff professional, knock this stuff out into the Amazon B&H warehouse, and really pick up some market share. But ultimately, I do think it comes back down to the intellectual property. STEM and Phoenix Audio and whatever, they've done a decent job of making DSP products for reasonable costs that worked really well for price point, right? Further price point. And I think they picked it up because they went out of this battle that everybody has with the patent lawsuits.
Yeah, I've seen many of the Logitech group systems out there. I think this is going to end up eating away at some of that market because I feel a whole lot more comfortable putting a Shure system in or recommending a Shure system than saying I can support a Logitech group system at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to looking at what they're going to create as far as ecosystem wise, right? What products are going to work better with others, kind of what Chris was talking about. And Chris sent me an email earlier because we've been at WKU talking a lot about Zoom rooms and what to use for UIs, and they make a nice clean UI. And right now, with Crestron doing away with their 1060 and raising the price on 1070, this PoE interface looks intriguing. So, you know, we're sometimes using iPads for this, and I'm super worried about the batteries and failure and warranty and total cost of ownership and replacement, et cetera, et cetera. So this might be something that could be very useful as an in-between.
I felt like this was really a play on the data market right now. Everybody's data driven. And a couple years back, when we saw the STEM audio booth, everybody was really, really excited about, well, look, you can get like real-time data, and these businesses that want to do cookie cutters and deploy and kind of get usage and metrics. I felt like it was Shure's play going into that usage and metrics game because of that UC market is kind of just huge right now, and getting some of that real-time data on how your rooms are being used, how the audio systems are being deployed. I felt like that was kind of where they wanted to get into so they could start offering some more of that in the future.
I also think this was a little bit of
be trying to play into the work from home thing, because this is, I mean, one of these systems is small enough for it'd be your higher level, your directors and C-level executives who have kind of a nice dedicated space. But you could say, like Justin said, here's a little touch panel, here's a processor, here's a sound bar. We'll hang on the 75-inch TV you've already got. Boom, done. You know,
I think it's also. Let's look on the flip side. For STEM, they're trying to crack into a pretty complicated market, right? And being a small-ish company, already, I mean, they'd been announced and had prototypes for a couple of years now, but there's not a whole lot of things shipping out of warehouses. And I think it is a little bit more difficult for them, too, to come out and say, to keep up with demand, especially now. I mean, this was dropped in their lap. I mean, how do you turn on the manufacturing in order to keep up? So I think it's a little bit of the other way. It would be curious to know which way the conversation started. Was it STEM going, hey, anybody interested in our cool stuff? Or was it Shure going to them saying, we need you because we have a plan and here's buckets of money and backing the truck up, right?
So
it'd be interesting.
Kind of buying into the supply chain side of things and just kind of getting there by leveraging the agreements and things that Shure already has for manufacturing and distribution. They can kind of jump on that. Interesting. I looked at it from the other direction.
I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Actively seeking an ecosystem. And Justin, yeah, I agree. I think it's only
absolutely
positive. So I guess the question is, will we start seeing these show? I mean, will we do the standard thing of Shure's purchasing them? So will we start seeing slightly rebranded products with a Shure label on it, sort of thing? Will they get eventually updated firmware that reports through all the same tools and talks with the existing Shure devices? I mean, these little products from STEM already have Dante, and they're very aggressively priced. So I think we may start seeing that, but. It's an interesting thing to watch, and I think for the right spaces, it's one of those things. Like we said, we trust Shure more than we do this unknown company. Yeah, Phoenix makes interesting things, but STEM came out of nowhere because it's a sub brand. They kind of created that. But we trust putting in Shure devices. So if this gets rebranded as Shure and finds out that actually, hey, this is pretty slick. Could this be the right sort of solution for those little standalone rooms? We don't need much in there. 2 inputs and in a dedicated Microsoft Teams room, why not? So I guess it'll be interesting to watch.
Indeed, it will.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our conversation about athletics and video production and all that fun stuff.
There's a great new digital magazine from Higher Ed AV Media found at higherEdAV.com, and we do a special monthly show where we actually stay on topic. It's a show where we try to really focus on a single topic and break it down into AV SuperFriends style. That's AV SuperFriends on topic, found at avsuperfriends.com, higheredav.com, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts from.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Today, we have a couple very special guests. I will introduce my compatriot from the Oregon State side of the house, Mr. Jeff Peterson. I've known Jeff Peterson, got to work with him for the better part of 10 years. Been here as long as I've been here at the university. Jeff is our academic technology liaison to the campus athletics department. Jeff, glad to have you here. How you feeling today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And so Jeff is we have a very interesting role, and I think technically you report to me daily, but then there's oftentimes when I'm working for you down in athletics, and we'll dig into some of that logistics later. I'm going to throw it over to Justin, and Justin, why don't you kind of show us who you've brought to the discussion today?
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Jordan Basham to the show. Hey, Jordan, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Now, I do have one question to start this off with. So I was browsing around to figure out what your official title was, because I actually don't know. I just look at you and go, that's the broadcast guy, ask questions about broadcasting stuff. But you've got a title of Special Projects Engineer versus the other website that I found was Production Manager. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Special Projects is a fun title. I've been a Special Projects producer and engineer. I've left that behind, and I'm the television production manager now at WKU-PBS, and then the executive producer for the Hilltopper Sports Satellite Network.
Gotcha. And those are two separate things, but the same job role, correct?
Well, it's like the HSSN is a subsidiary of the PBS, WKU-PBS, so they're really the same thing. It's just kind of how we brand our athletics productions. To help people understand that there's a separation between the PBS station, because it's the way we distribute it. There's some commercial content.
So I do know that you do a lot more than sports. So before we get into sports, why don't you just kind of give a brief overview of what you do on the academic side of things at Western?
So I never think that I do a lot in the academic world. We have a lot of students that we work with. But we're really a non-academic unit. But we do get to work hand in hand with the School of Media on campus on projects, on mentoring, and things like that.
Gotcha. So, Mark, we ready to dive into sports? What do you think?
I think so. I think we are ready to dive in. And Jeff, I do want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself. I know you are a technical systems integrator. On this show, that may mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But why don't you kind of tell our audience what you see your role is between academic technology and athletics?
It's funny whenever someone asks me to describe that. There's so many different ways. I guess the simplest way is I'm a broadcast engineer, an AV specialist, oftentimes a crewer, broadcast packager, anything within athletics besides desktop IT support that is related to technology I'm responsible for. Video boards, scoreboards, audio systems, putting games on Pac-12 networks at times. It's kind of a wide variety of things that I do.
Absolutely. Well, I think everybody listening and probably on this show wears multiple different hats on many different days. And I think you're like everybody else in this. And I do want to kind of dig in a little bit, because I think today's show's special because, like Chris said in the intro, there's a lot of schools that operate and they have a complete silo of athletics. And we have a unique opportunity to provide support and production resources and facilities for our respective athletics departments. And I do want to kind of dig into some of the history, and we'll kind of talk about OSU's history, and then we'll throw it over to the Western, and we'll see if there's any similarities in there. And can you kind of take us into the Wayback Machine? Because I know you've been working with athletics for a while, and it's kind of had a couple different iterations. It went from in-house, different types of small production trucks and things, and kind of just do a quick, version of kind of how it's played out and as you've seen it over the last 5-10 years.
So when I first started here, Academic Technologies was pretty much just responsible for game day. There was, outside of football, no real video integration. Scoreboards came in and ran them on game day, and then with the last stadium renovation with a new video board, we built a broadcast truck. And within, I would say, 2 years after that, we had video boards in all of our major venues. And it pretty much turned into a pretty full-time job. And through those years, the relationship between campus and athletics has always been dicey, which I kind of pride myself on really building and keeping that relationship strong. I know a lot of universities, even down south from us, they are very much their own department, not a lot of campus integration. And as we aged with our production truck, our Academic Tech opened a brand new building with a small control room that was never really built to do anything outside of small studio shows. And there was an opportunity for athletics to kind of buy into that, and it built that relationship, as in a lot of trust between campus and athletics, because all of a sudden athletics, not putting in a $3 million control room, was able to utilize campus resources, which I think for us was huge, because now we're able to help fund a facility that probably didn't really have a funding upgrade path. And then from there, partnerships with our Pac-12 networks, being able to produce content for them as well. We've kind of turned into this hub for the athletic department.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it briefly, and some people may not know the differences. And we talk about doing board shows, and then there's broadcast shows. And I think we kind of started out with what you see in the venue being the board show that we produced. And to some people listening, they may not kind of understand that variance there. There's kind of multiple productions happening. And I think we've grown in the past from just kind of producing some small content for just in-house things to growing. And I'm curious to see kind of, Jordan, on your side, did it have a similar kind of evolution? Did it start kind of with smaller stuff, or did you guys just jump whole hard, just boom right in? I'm kind of interested to kind of see what your involvement within the athletics department really is.
So for there's a little bit longer history than really me. The PBS station, even predating it be the PBS station, has been packaging sports television. In the 70s, they packaged for CBS and ABC. It'd be 2 games a year. In the 80s, the station was created and it turned into a local production. And they do 5 or 6 games a year. I came on board as a student in 2000, and the first thing I remember doing was putting on a T-shirt and standing in the background at a press conference. And that was when they launched the Hilltopper Sports Satellite Network. So it's really funny that 20 years later, I'm the executive producer of that now. So I really enjoy that side story for myself. But we, in 2000, we probably did 10 games. We started incorporating road games. We were doing 30 games a year in 2008, 9, and 10. Conference alignments changed a little bit with that and TV deals. This year we'll probably do 14 games, and that's really pretty good. And in the way scheduling's going, we've lucked out to already add a couple home games. So it started for us really more on the broadcast side, and then as facilities evolved, there were opportunities to add services. So for us, we didn't get video boards in a venue until really 2003, and that was our basketball arena. So we were doing the Hilltopper Sport Satellite Network had existed 3 years before video boards existed. And then 2007, we had video boards at football. That became a bigger production. We were doing multi-camera live streaming from football since 2003. So we were doing that before video boards. So
now
the
remind me,
broadcast side
Jordan. Now on that, so how long have we had replay for football? Because was it the first season of the Sun Belt? Is that correct, in 2008?
I think that's right.
So that's how long I've worked with Jordan, since 2008, right? Something like that. And so the way you talk about it seems very simple, but let me tell you, when Jordan's working, he's managing 50,000 students and 50,000 problems and trying to figure out how to get this, boat in the water, if you will. And it's amazing for me to watch, just being the replay guy. So Jordan and I work very closely with athletics on different various types of projects. I can't really talk about exactly what Jordan does, but on the IT side, we do, just AV systems that are installed. We got a players lounge. We've got all kinds of facilities on football side and basketball that they ask us to do projects for, just like a classroom. That's mainly what we interact with. And then replay came along, and replay is not part of my job. And it's something that we had to learn. And I was the only replay guy that started out, and I brought on 2 other guys that work in our AV department. And that has really advanced a long way. But knowing that I have a 10-hour day on replay for football games, you're there before we get there and you leave after we leave. So I know your days are longer than ours. So kind of maybe just go through a typical football game where you all are the only production truck present, because that's a task. I mean, I see it, and the amount of students you have. Talk about what that setup looks like, and maybe talk a little bit about the truck if you want.
I was gonna say, do you actually have a truck? Are you guys running a truck, or are you guys running a facility?
We have a new truck, but I'll let Jordan talk about that.
Yeah, in 2012, we rolled a new HD truck. It's a 40-foot Expando. It's a nice truck. We built it with enough space and training in mind. We have anywhere between 35 and 40 students on our paid production crew. Plus a staff of there's 6 full-time production people, engineers. Like, we're the PBS side of that supports so much of it, and we're able to service athletics. And then the partnership with athletics lets us bring those things and put them in people's homes as a product, over our broadcast and cable distribution network. But for a game day for football, hopefully it's not 11 a.m. kickoff and I get to sleep in a little bit. But I try to be the first person on the TV crew there. Athletics facilities never fails that they beat me there, or parking and transportation beats me there, either way. But I'll try to get there probably 8 hours before kickoff. My crew calls are typically 6 hours before kickoff if we're doing a full setup. If we're like this season, we packaged a pair of games for ESPN3. We'll do 2 shows in that. We'll do the ESPN 3 shows, but we'll do the ESPN 3 show, the video board show. We'll share resources. We have a satellite truck that we're the Hilltopper Sports Satellite Network, but this is the first season we're not actually distributing on satellite, just because that's 2020. So we'll put instead of using our control room at the basketball arena, we'll just set up a temporary control room in our satellite truck, just to save me the foot traffic of having to go back and forth between venues when there's an issue. But we'll cut the main TV show in the big truck, the video board show in the SAT truck. Then this year we've added a third product. We partner with the rights holder for athletics, Learfield IMG College, to do a pregame show that they do. It takes the video board feed, adds their pregame show radio feed, and then they stream it on athletics Facebook as a second screen experience, especially for fans that aren't home. There's so many sponsored elements in the pregame show on the video board and in the radio show. It made a lot of sense. And it's real simple. We take the tune-in audio feed, plug that into a Hilo, and then plug in the confidence monitor of the virtual video board and then stream that out. It really actually had to do a webinar for people at Learfield so that they could kind of copy the way we were doing it. But that was one of the fun things to add this year that was just really, really simple.
That's funny. That's my experience with Learfield too. You got to teach them how to do their stuff.
Yeah, the visual radio started as a project they were doing, and we were able to add to it a little bit.
I came out of radio, right, and it dealt a lot with the Learfield and Learfield Sports, and I was just like, oh my God, you guys do this for a living? What are you doing?
Well, we're really lucky that the guys here, the men and women here, they're bought into that. Learfield IMG has turned it into a media company. They take the training very seriously. That's one of the reasons we were able to do a little webinar with the region, is because they understood how important it was as an addition to their property.
So Jordan, are you? So, and this is too personal. You can say so, but which part of the house does your paycheck come from? Are you closer aligned with athletics, or are you closer aligned with academic? And I'm just trying to see if I can figure out the silo that you may exist in.
So there are a lot of silos. Like when you talk about separating editorial integrity and things like that, we have an NPR affiliate that is inside of public broadcasting. So the news side is really separated, and their checks, I'm sure, say WKU on them too. But for me, when I'm not doing things that require that editorial separation, I think of myself as a university employee. And I just like, that's the same way I think of a dean and the same way I think of the athletic director. So that may be a little bit that I think of it differently. But also I'm hard pressed to think it's too different. Like we discussed, people wearing different hats. I feel like all my hats say WKU on them.
Gotcha. Now, Jeff, you're an academic technology employee, but 99% of your time is kind of working within the athletics domain. And I want to kind of dig in a little bit and kind of the value add, because we have an MOU from academic technology with athletics, and I kind of want to walk some folks through what that really means. And when we've said, we've done this road, 5-6 years ago when we started doing MOUs. I'm not even sure how long ago it was, but we recognized that it was an island, and we didn't want to kind of burn somebody out, because like you, Jordan, Jeff, you have some ridiculously long days, but we wanted to make sure you had the additional resources and you weren't all by yourself down there in athletics. And I'm not sure if you were kind of really involved in that process, but can you kind of talk about being a part of academic technology and being able to use our common resources versus just being within athletics, and kind of what it would mean if you didn't have the academic technology tools and resources and people?
I think the common is it does give me people to back me up, which is huge. Something happens to me, luckily, well, not luckily, but with the whole world shutting down in March and my daughter coming 3 months early, had we had events 3 times a week, I would have had a team to support me while I was taking care of my family. I think the other huge one, which is, Mark and I talk about this a lot, is there's not a lot of technical savvy people within the athletic department. And there's a lot of high cost systems that make up all of the systems that are used for games, events, sponsorship. So having that department backing you up when you need the funding, it takes it from being one guy asking for thousands of dollars to fix something to, this is something we need to consider. And here's an entire group of people helping make that decision.
I see you doing a lot of consulting work in your role, right? You do a lot in that integrator role that you have. A lot of what you're doing is letting athletics know what they should and shouldn't be doing on their technical side, because like you said, they may not have a lot of technical expertise in-house. And what people listening to the show may actually acknowledge that being is really a consultant. You are really the consultant and director and coordinator and crewing agent for athletics, but you work with an academic technology, and you're kind of backed up with all those resources from the academic unit, which some folks, I would imagine Chris, IU would probably be like, well, that's crazy. Athletics is its own thing, and we would never ask academic technology to ever reach in and do anything. And let's keep the separation of church and state accordingly. Does that sound kind of true to what you see at the IU side?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some limited interaction, but it's kind of what Justin had mentioned, the way he interacts at WKU a lot. We'll go over and install a conference room or help them do their training rooms or things like that. But there is kind of that big line in the sand, that big church and state separation between, once it comes to a true, NCAA athletics production sort of thing, that's its own thing. And, honestly, I don't know. It's not a conversation we've had just because they're there and we're here and that's what we do. But, there could be sharing of resources, kind of like Jeff was saying. There may be someone over there, a school the size of IU, there's probably 8 people over there running around like chickens with their heads cut off while, the world's on fire. And we've got, people with some cycles to spare. Maybe we could help out. But that's a larger conversation that, like you guys have been talking about, that's taken, 10 plus years to kind of get to that point. So while I'm sure there are schools out there, and for those of you listening, we'd love to hear from you on that. There are schools out there that are, big schools that have that back and forth. It's certainly not common at all, because once you get to a certain point, it's its own silo, it's its own revenue stream. It's its own department with its own staff who, their badges say the university name on it, but they have one mission, and that's just supporting the production, around the athletics group. So, yeah.
And my experiences with that has been that like the smaller institutions, for instance, the directional schools, like I came from Northwest Missouri State, and their entire operation for video is students and academic driven, right? All the studios, all the work, all the engineering, everything is from the students and the faculty advisors. At UMKC, they like to contract that kind of stuff out because they want to be a Division I school without the ginormous budgets that a lot of Division I schools have. Until recently, and they moved back their basket. We only have basketball. Well, on the big time sports, we only have basketball. So they moved it back on campus, and then now there's been this like re-interaction, where we're now starting to see the academic side. Like, I do more work for them now than we ever did before, because when they were off campus playing at one of the arenas in downtown Kansas City, they hired everything out. And when they came back to campus, part of that was to bring it back to the students and also to save a few coins. And now I'm getting more involved in practice replay systems, right? The video replay systems for practices for volleyball and basketball and things. And even the video boards, they just put them in last summer. Like they only had them hot for a couple of weeks before COVID shut them all down. So they spent all that money and it was only up for like a month. So I think that's the difference between sometimes these great big institutions, like a couple of you guys are from, where sometimes the money is just flowing, and to the NCAA and the way the funding structures go within the university and how donor money can go makes it easier for them to take donor money and push it right back out the door for these fancy things, where the smaller schools, the budget is the budget. That's all their money they're ever going to see. And they have to use every coin, and they use the brain power they have. And that's been my experience between the two things in this.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to bigger schools, and Jordan may be able to back me up on this, but I don't think we're a big school, and I don't think we have a lot of money. Is that a correct assessment, Jordan?
Yeah, I was wondering if we were getting included that too.
So with saying that,
we've been really fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 plus years that I've been working with athletics, and even before that working in IT only, we do a lot of work with the little resources that we have. And do we want to get into student workers right now? Is that all right?
We're going to dive into that in a little bit, though. Let's hold on to students. I think I have some stuff I want to make sure we get into that. But the history I think is really important. I'd love to see. I mean, I'm more interested in who actually identifies themselves as a big school with lots of money. I don't know if anybody here really recognizes themselves.
I mean, these days, that might be a push for any school, unless you're, I guess, Harvard, but whatever.
Well, I think that's where it comes into, like if you're in the mid tiers, like I would imagine Western Kentucky and UMKC are, we look at Oregon State and IU. And I guess if you take the football side of it, the Power Five, right? Those are big time with money, right? The rest of us are just trying to, get enough scholarship athletes to actually put something on the floor. And so I think that's how we break it down. And I'm sure that when I go back to Northwest Missouri State or anybody else, and they're like, well, you guys have tons of money. And I'm like, well, okay. So it's a weird perspective.
It's all relative, right? I mean, if you have pennies, the next person that has $5 might have a lot of money, right? So that's kind of the way I see it. And I think Jordan and I see WKU as that mid-tier university with money, and the expertise that we have within IT and Jordan's staff, especially with what I see out of WKYU, the PBS station, if I'm saying that right. I mean, you guys do a lot of amazing work. And I know and you all have won Emmys, and have you all won any awards for all your athletics work, or talk a little bit about that, Jordan?
So we won quite a few Emmys, none of them specifically for sports work, but we qualify because of our reach. We qualify for a different category. Like we won regional Emmys, so like a 13-state region. But the sports work typically meets the threshold to have to qualify for a national Emmy. We have a few recent alumni that have won national Emmys for their sports work, but not the station or not the projects we're on right now. There are a couple of professional organizations that have recognized our work. And then always the nice thing is being invited on things like this where your peers recognize you or are interested in what you might be able to contribute to a conversation.
Cool. Well, let's keep time here to take a quick break. When we come back after this, I want to dive in. I want to really dig deep on some of the systems and maybe trucks and or board systems and things like that, and go through and see if we have some similarities or some differences and some perspectives on kind of what is under the hood of some of the stuff that we may be working on day in and day out, because I think people listening really want to dive into the nuts and bolts and kind of hear what you have. But first, let's kind of take a break, get a drink, hang out, and then we'll see you on the other side.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We are picking up our conversation, but I wanted to pivot a little bit and dive in a little bit deeper for folks and see what's going on under the hood of both of these institutions and kind of what makes them tick, and if there's some secret sauce we can kind of talk about. I'm gonna start with you, Jeff. I do want to bring up kind of the interesting scenario that I know I work with you in the Learning Innovation Center, which we recognize as our broadcast center, for lack of a better term, on campus. But that is not an actual athletic venue. And I wanted to kind of turn it over to you and kind of talk us through how we're actually connecting and how we're serving the athletics needs from our academic facility, and kind of what's under the hood there.
Okay, so yeah, one of our biggest obstacles in this was fiber counts between venue and our control room. while we are a fiber-rich campus for data, it was never really planned on for the media side. And so when we started looking at this, we were pretty pre-IP. IP was really, really expensive. So we've gotten it down to where we're running on 2 fibers by multiplexing everything, which currently gives us 12 channels of video or SDI up to the control room and 4 returns. And then we have a pair of backup fiber. And part of that multiplexing, we're doing video sync and gigabit Ethernet. And I know the traditional centralized control room within athletics is you do house all of your equipment in the control room and fiber out, including like your camera control or CCUs, fibered out to sheds. And so what we did is I built essentially a fly pack or 2 small fly packs that our CCUs live in, and they go between venue and venue or venue to venue. And as part of that Ethernet trunk, we're using that for camera control, tally back to the venue. And then we also have it split up between Dante for all of our audio intercom. And so one rack houses the cameras and auxiliary video feeds, and the second rack gives us flexibility for additional video feeds, not right where all of our video board or our cameras tie in.
Now, when you say camera control, do you not have people and sticks? Do you just have robots out there?
No, so we have fully operated cameras for video shading, quality control. So
okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah. No,
no. Tell me more. I want to know.
Yeah, we're not using robots yet.
They're coming though. They're coming.
They are. I know some of the network shows have played with that on some of the smaller shows. I don't think it's quite there yet.
And so you said you had kind of like the multi fly pack scenario. I know that on game days, when you have multiple games between multiple venues, you and a couple of crew members are busy trucking that stuff around and repatching glass. And because, like you mentioned, we may not be as rich on the glass and infrastructure as we'd like to do, but you've done a lot with a little bit of glass. And I think it's the multiplexing side of that. And to see it, and it's not that big. It's a pretty compact rack. I think you've done a really good job with being able to fit a lot of horsepower in a little tiny space. It's heavy. I know that. It's not a light thing, but. And so I've seen you kind of drop it in, drop it out.
I guess if anyone knows what the old CoachComm systems, the football communication system racks look like, it's a double wide equipment rack. That's our primary rack. Is we repurposed one of those racks, and then we have the secondary system. It used to fit in a 10RU rack, but we wanted to add some monitors to it and some drawers for cable storage. So it's in a I think it's in a 16 RU amplifier rack now.
Quick question. What'd you do with all that CoachComm stuff? Because I know the guy that deals with it for us, he also works in IT. He wants to throw it away and light the dumpster on fire. So I was just curious.
It's currently sitting on a shelf in my office.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mostly because the surplus process is such a pain. Eventually, we'll get a student to go through a couple bookshelves full of gear to offload it, but
it's holding the shelves down on the ground.
It is. It's actually in case we have an earthquake. It'll keep the walls from caving in.
Oh, there you go.
That sounds
perfect.
about right.
So
that's aligned with WKU as well.
Gotcha.
And I guess the multiple venue. Let's talk about multiple shows and multiple venues. We're set up. We can, on a football game day, we can only do a football game just because of the amount of feeds we need. But when we started doing games for Pac-12 networks, last year was the first year we built a backbench, so we added a switcher panel to our main Ross Carbonite and then a secondary replay system. And we were able to do a volleyball board show and actually back-to-back national soccer broadcasts simultaneously. And with that, we used some borrowed cameras. And when I first built the system, I was trying to figure out how to cheaply do tallies. We're using DNF tally controls or remote GPO controllers right now. But I actually used, for distribution, I have a Blackmagic router in the rack. And with the Blackmagic tally boxes, which are used for if you're using their switcher to tally cameras, you can actually, on the input side, trigger router crosspoints, predetermined router crosspoints, which will then trigger the output box to tally. And so on that secondary show, I'm fudging tallies a little bit, which I find it kind of funny how low tech it is, but it works until the router gets hung up.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty, right? Like we're doing a lot with not a whole lot of resources. You've scaled it back, and you're doing a national broadcast. You're doing really high quality board shows, but your budget probably doesn't look that way. So I'm interested to kind of see, like, what WKU, like, I know you mentioned you had a truck, and like, can you talk about maybe some of your infrastructure, and Justin, maybe you have some secret behind the scenes infrastructure knowledge as well.
So I'll talk a little bit about what I know, which is not much. So I believe, according to Exos and DV Sports, we were the first football stadium in Division I to pull 5 fibers for 5 different camera feeds up to the replay booth. I was part of that design. IT, our cabling group within IT, pulls all the fiber on campus, and so that's, I believe, when I first started interfacing with Jordan on a more technical level, because before that, it was just, we had a couple PTZ cameras across the stadium that we got on the goal lines that fed directly into ours, and we got a program feed from Jordan. And then this was still in the Sun Belt, I believe, right, Jordan, when we upgraded to 5 fibers and we got those FIDOs down at the pedestal. So I was part of that. I did a little bit of design work on the fiber for Diddle Arena that is our basketball stadium that
wait,
Jordan was heavily
what was that name again?
With.
What was that name
Diddle
again?
Arena.
Diddle
Arena?
Did not like dongle, but diddle. Like EA Diddle, a coach back in the day.
Like you diddle fart around, you diddle dink with something. Okay. I'm making fun of a guy's name, and that's not cool, but I just wanted to make sure I heard that right.
Actually, I've never even thought of that. It's just always been EA Diddle, right? Like I never thought about diddle or doodle or anything like that. And so, fiber has been a big part of, I think, what Jordan does on game days as well. And that's really the extent of it as far as what my role has been. So, Jordan, why don't you talk a little bit about the technical side and what you feed down those glass?
So the fiber addition to production has been a big deal. I guess that happened in 2018, along with a video board upgrade. They did a simultaneous video board upgrade at softball, baseball, football, and basketball, and then a new sound system at soccer. So it was a good year for Daktronics. They were welcome. But we added, I think, we interconnected the academic complex, which is the building we're in, the basketball arena that'll be unnamed right now, and then the football stadium. And that's allowed us to do quite a bit. We talk about supporting multiple events on a game day. So I'm in the academic complex right now. So our primary studio setup is a fly pack. So we've, for a long time, been really big on remote production. So when it came time to do an upgrade to our studio control room, it made a lot of sense for us to select something that wouldn't just be locked to this building. We do a lot of stuff out in the community, off campus. The first project the fly pack did was a partnership with the Visitors Bureau, an event they did. We did like a mock newscast for their, we don't do news, but we did a mock newscast for their annual convention. The second thing it did was we took it to the Regional Juvenile Detention Center and trained residents there how to produce a TV show. And then we did 2 episodes of our public affairs show with them as the crew. They interviewed a U.S. Senator and representative as part of the show, talk about criminal justice reform. So that hasn't played heavily in the field for athletics productions, but we produce our coaches shows out of our studio. And then if we pick up an outside TV group for broadcast, we'll pass it through there to insert commercials on our split feed. Then our truck we built in 2012, which is probably about the time we added fiber for official replay. That would have been 2 years before we changed conferences, but that would have been the point in time where we could send you HD. So that's probably when we did it. That truck's 40-foot expando. On a normal pre-COVID day, we'd have between 13 and 18 individuals inside the truck at positions and training. So we partnered with a couple different manufacturers when we built that truck. We designed it here in partnership with a consultant engineer in Ohio who had quite a bit of experience, but kind of helped us. We knew what we wanted, knew what we needed, and then helped connect the dots on things we needed. And then it ended up going out to bid and getting built by Shook in Texas.
So truck, again, how many millions of dollars was that truck? I mean, what was the cost on that?
So it probably would have been a lot like list price, a lot closer to $3 million, but we got it with partnerships a little under $2 million. Grass Valley was a big partner in that for the switcher and replay. And then Ikegami was a really great partner for cameras and Fuji for lenses.
Was that built out of where Game Creek's out in Ohio, just by chance?
No, it was, I cannot think of the gentleman's name right now, but he's next door to Gerling and Associates and works with them a lot. And that's who kind of we had looked at to build our truck. But the things that go through state money every now and again, the bid goes to lowest bidder. And we got a good product, so it was okay. So the truck has done, one of the things we wanted to start doing, we were doing road games already. It was probably our 5th year of doing road games. We wanted to elevate to HD because we were behind the curve on that. Our previous truck was built in-house. It actually had been a bread delivery truck. So it was like a 12-foot box truck that had been converted and updated a few times. There's some great pictures.
I think every university has one of those trucks that AV has to have. Right? Everybody has to have a bread truck at some point.
It was a 1977 Chevy Carry van. But there's some great pictures of it literally being built in the studio because that was the biggest space they had that was indoors to work on it. It was multi-core cameras when I got here. Thanks to an alumni at the Food Network, we upgraded to Tri-X cameras in the early 2000s. And then our next real big upgrade was probably 2008 when we added hard drive-based replay, moving up from tape, and then the huge upgrade in 2012. Then we have a lot of throwdown type equipment or stuff that isn't dedicated to a vehicle or a room. So we have like a TriCaster Mini that we'll use to augment different productions, whether it's a sports event or not. We also have a satellite truck. It's kind of on its way out. We're not doing a lot of uplinks or anything right now, and haven't really for a few years. We utilized LTN for delivery quite a bit when we delivered to ESPN or another partner.
Do you see that satellite truck completely going away, or what's the plans for that? Have you had discussions on that?
We change our minds every time we talk about it. So we do an entertainment show an hour away. We do a music festival in the summer. And it's really great to have the generator that's built in and the air conditioners. Having that large air conditioned room is really nice in the middle of June in Kentucky. So
Justin's only asking because he wants it for his video wall.
Yeah, I'm going to put a bid on
at that.
So you just buy it on eBay for $5.
Yeah, well, I moved it over to basketball last. We moved it over to basketball last night because that's where I'm going to put we're doing some PTZ cameras, like kind of light robo work with basketball. So I put my operators there to give us a little more physical distancing, but maybe next season.
Yeah, that bidding on old equipment, that's not a joke. I don't know if you know this, Jordan, not really having to do with athletics or anything, but we could bid on parking and transportation buses for about $100 that I think might run. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
No.
I haven't looked. I tried to get the RV from the Confucius Institute. They ended up not selling it. So.
Oh, who'd they sell that to?
They
That was pretty.
ended up
That was
staying
nice.
stayed with whatever school district picked up the Confucius Institute. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a whole nother subject there. Yeah. We'll stay off that.
Nice. There's
But
always
then
that
we
weird like surplus thing that everybody's trying to tackle.
The only other thing I'll say about gear is we had a lot of existing tracks infrastructure at football and basketball, so we've stuck with tracks, cameras, hence the late addition of fiber so many places.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're. Yeah, I think we everybody has some of that stuff that's running. Nobody wants to pull it out at this point, so might as well make use of it.
It's easier to maintain than SMPTE too.
Gotcha. Nice. Well, all right. Well, it was kind of a little bit of a deep dive for some of the folks, kind of the back end, kind of under of what's going on here. But we're gonna take a quick step to the side again. I think we're actually gonna get into some more holiday talk from the group and maybe some naughty and nice lists, something like that. So stick around, enjoy that, and we'll pick up some more of our conversation in the future.
Well, welcome back. It is almost Christmas, Festivus, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Let's do a lightning round. I think for the heck of it, we all kind of have our naughty and nice list in the AV world. So we're going to go around and real quickly rattle off a couple of things. What's something on your naughty or nice list, or what's something on your list that's naughty or nice? Some item, some product, some company, some process you've been working with, or just in general something that belongs on Chris Kringle's naughty list or on the nice list. Whether they get a brand new Nintendo the next morning, or do they get a lump of coal? So I'll start off just on my naughty list. Of course, COVID sucks and all these online meetings suck, but that's not it. I'm going to say my naughty list is Clear One because, boy, these guys are hammering on that lawsuit. Now, I understand everyone wants to defend their intellectual property. In fact, I believe you have a requirement in the legal system to defend your intellectual property anytime it's potentially infringed upon. But I'll say working at a place where there used to be a lot of Clear One stuff going in, there is no more Clear One stuff going in at all because they have used up all their goodwill. On the other hand, on the nice list, I'm going to say, and it's not one I've used myself, but Extron's AV over IP system, their what they call it, their I can't remember the name of it, but the little NAV system.
Network AV.
They have a wall plate transmitter, which, and for a true AV over IP system, is interesting and something we've been clamoring on other manufacturers to come up with, and they have yet to do so. And I will say, Extron has one that I think it's a 3-gang. It's big, but hey, it gets the job done. And if you want a wall plate form factor to jam something, in the wall or in a floor box, kudos to them for engineering that one out. Whereas the other guys can't even figure out how to take the damn wings off their transmitters to make it fit in a half rack. So there's my naughty and my nice list. Larry, what you got?
Well, I've got a naughty and a nice as well. And since we've already mentioned half racks, I'll start with the nice. The nice is the Extron Net PA amp. It's a half rack amp with Dante and DSP, and the DSP has 4 mic line ins and 2 analog outs. And did I mention it's a half rack? For a standard classroom, pretty sweet. Now, my naughty list is the Extron Net PA amp. It's a half rack amp with Dante and DSP with 4 analog mic line ins and 2 line outs. But none of the mic line ins have phantom power. So if I put a gooseneck mic on top of the lectern, I still have to add another box into this stupid thing.
What? You have a mic line in and it doesn't have phantom power?
On a DSP with Dante and full blown, it's just, come on, guys.
That's stupid.
So close. Yeah.
Wow.
Is it Justin, local power supply or is it PoE?
It is local power supply because it's a 200-watt amp. I mean, this is a pretty decent-sized little half-rack box. Just one little oversight. And I'm sure there's a good reason. I just haven't been able to figure it out.
Engineering laziness, right?
Firmware to come.
I guess my naughty list is me because my wife has a chalkboard downstairs and she actually put a naughty and nice list and I'm on it. So I'm going to stay positive this year and only do a nice list. So AV over IP solution I bought for my house, Liberty. It was so inexpensive that I said, you know what? I'm just going to buy 2 encoders and 4 or 5 decoders and see what happens. And I did. And they also, Chris, have a wall plate that's 2 gain. And it's really small. And this stuff just works. Now, I'll be honest, I've been controlling it through my laptop. I haven't had a third-party API or integration or anything like that. But it's been up and running without one single problem, except for a bad cable termination, which is my problem. Other than that, it was really weird. I'm not going to get into it, but it basically reduced the bandwidth and crushed all signals going to every TV everywhere. But once you got that fixed, this stuff just works. So kudos to them.
That's very cool.
And they have Dante implementation on it too.
Nice.
I think.
It's called. It's called the. What is it? 5000 series digital links.
I'm looking
IP
up right now. There's
by Liberty.
2100 and a 5000. So you're saying the 5000.
I got the
series is
5000s. Yeah, and they have that wall plate version that's a 5000. It's got USB, HDMI, VGA. Oh, it's got all kinds of crap on it.
And it uses H266.244, so you'll never be able to use it with any other product ever again.
That would be the concern, but definitely worth looking into. Cool.
It's cheap and it works. You know, we'll see how sustainable it is over time.
Well, I think on my short list, if we start with the positives, in a university setting, you know, we tend to get ratcheted into systems, right? Crestron, Extron, AMX, whatever. And a little over a year ago, went to I went with Chris and we went to this Avixa training, and everybody's talking about QSC's products. I hadn't used anything outside their amplifiers in years, amplifiers and speakers. And I thought when they said they had a control system, I thought, haha, cute. It's a DSP with a control system. And then I got one and I used it, and I learned how to use it, and I'm like, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense. I'm pretty pleased. So I would say that QSA is doing some things correctly. I even have a sample of their video stuff, the AV over IP things. And I got to say, I've been pleasantly surprised. So they kind of landed on my, I'll promote this. I'll do this list. On the other side, and this is all encompassing, man, I am so tired of subscriptions for everything. I'm tired of, if I spent $10,000 on a piece of hardware, I don't need $1,000 a year subscription fee. Come on. Now I get it. If it's a free app, right? Hey, you can get this, app that will collect your data and it's $5 a month. Okay, well, if I so choose, great, whatever. Because it's some small guy. It's got to make money. It's an app. But if I buy a dedicated piece of hardware, and I fear is that we're going to start seeing that happen with like even just desktop computers and such, that it's like, oh, hey, you bought a new laptop or a new iPad. It's wonderful. You spent $10,000 on it. Here's your subscription service, and if you don't pay it, you don't get to use it. And I'm just kind of burned out on it. I had a Wink controller for my home, right? And I bought it because I could just buy the translator, right? It had Z-Wave and Zigbee and Wi-Fi and all this stuff. And I got it set up because I wanted something I could control locally. I didn't want to go to the web and the cloud and everything else. And then this year they said, "Oh, never mind. It's $9 a month, and if you have an existing system, we're going to break it." And they preemptively broke it. They sent an update that preemptively broke it before they announced that they were going to break it, so that you couldn't just stop the updates. I was furious. And then they were like, "Well, why did you leave our service?" I'm like, I'm not paying $60 a year for a service that I'm not even using. They're all local products on a Z-Wave system. I'm not even going to the internet because I don't want to be able to control my lights from $10 too. It's crazy. Anyway, that's my naughty list.
I think my naughty list is you probably all had this already at some level, but manufacturers, vendors, everybody, stop with the webinars and stuff at this point. I don't have time to have 40,000 different invites on my calendar for your seemingly special 3-hour webinar
right at the same time in the middle of the day.
Yeah, come on. I'd rather you just send me a PDF. Like, I don't have time to sit there and attend a meeting anymore. Like, it was cute back in April, but now it's run its course. Can we just all agree that we don't need any more webinars or Zoom virtual conferences and things like that at this point? Just give me the information. Don't make me sign up. And I really hate the ones that you sign up and you're wondering, like, here, put on your calendar, and there's no calendar invite, and you're wondering what's going on. Yeah, we're done with that. You've made the naughty list. You've accomplished it. You're all getting coal. None of you have made the good list at all. So please stop with the webinars and all that stuff. I don't need that information on my calendar anymore. Things I'm not the good list. I'm really, really intrigued with some of the new virtual workflows that are coming on. We're talking about it in some other avenues, even on this show, but I won't spoil those conversations. But some of the broadcast stuff that's being full virtualized, I'm really excited about that and what that means for some of the broadcast stuff across our university. I'm not going to spoil it, but I think there's a couple different manufacturers out there, some companies like BMix and OBS, and what they're doing, pushing the bounds of what we've traditionally expected of our broadcast facilities, and I'm really intrigued to kind of deploy some more of that in the coming year.
Well, there you have it. Naughty list, nice list. Merry Christmas, everybody. Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.